Hey, how's it going, guys? One of my students asked me for a video on inverse derivatives, so I figured I would do the entire thing with a complete example as to why we'd even need these formulas in the first place. So here we go. We have this function f of x is equal to 2x to the fifth plus 2x to the third plus 1 half x minus 3. Fairly typical polynomial. I've told you that if you plug in 2, you get 78. You replace all those x's with the 2, you get 78. And we're given that g of x is f inverse of x. Find g prime of 78. So first of all, why do we need these formulas in the first place? We need these formulas in the first place because even though that we know that this function has an inverse, we don't know what that inverse is. So how do we know that this function has an inverse? Well, we're going to have to take the derivative of this thing later in the problem anyways. So let's just go ahead and do it. We're going to get 10x to the fourth plus 6x squared plus 1 half, our basic power rule there. And if you take that derivative, you end up seeing that it starts off at 1 half and only goes up because these are both positive even exponents. And with those positive even exponents, that means we have a monotone increasing function because the derivative is always positive. If it always goes up, it must be a one-to-one function. And if it's a one-to-one function, it has an inverse. If it's one-to-one and onto, whatever. The point is this function has an inverse. You can show it has an inverse. But finding that inverse is effectively impossible. I'm not sure if there is a way. I know that because it's a quintic, you're not going to be able to solve for x in general. So I don't think there's a formula for the inverse of this particular problem. I did ask ChatGPT and Wolfram Alpha. Neither of them were able to tell me. So I don't think there's an inverse for this function that you can find using elementary functions, but you can find the derivative of the inverse anywhere that you know the original coordinate. So let's go ahead and do it. In order to make this happen, we're going to start off by recalling that our definition of an inverse is the fact that the inverse undoes the function. Because the inverse undoes the function, we say that f of g of x is equal to x here. So the inverse is just undoing it. So if you do both functions to x, you just get x back out. We're now going to go ahead and use our chain rule. We're going to get f prime of g of x multiplied by g prime of x. We have taken the derivative of the left-hand side, and the derivative of the right-hand side is just the value 1. And now we're going to go ahead and divide by this thing so we can get g prime by itself. We can say that g prime of x is equal to 1 over f prime of g of x. So if you want to memorize the inverse derivative formula, you knock yourself out. I think it's a little bit too difficult to memorize so many things. I think it's much easier to use the definition of an inverse and do a quick little chain rule, 2 lines, end up remembering it. Up to you how you want to do it. Regardless, our goal is to find g prime of 78. So we're going to replace this x here with a 78, and we're going to end up with g prime of 78 is equal to 1 over f prime of g of 78. So therefore, one more step, continuing on, g prime of 78 is equal to 1 over f prime of, g is the inverse, so g of 78 is the same thing as asking what value for f do you get 78, so you get 2. So f prime of 2 is what we're finding. And as I said earlier, you're going to need to take this derivative anyways, and we're plugging in 2 into this thing. So let's plug in 2 into this guy. If you plug in 2 here, you get 10 times 2 to the 4th power plus 6 times 2 squared plus 1 half. And f prime of 2, feel free to use a calculator, but this thing's going to be 2 to the 4th is 16 times 10, 160. 2 squared is 4 times 6 is 24. 160 plus 24 is 184 plus a half. So double the 184, that gives you 368. Add 1, 369 over 2. And so you can plug into your calculator if you needed that, but we're doing the reciprocal of that, 1 over it. So our final answer now, g prime of 78 equals 2 divided by 369. There it is. Beautiful. Have a wonderful rest of your day.